welcome to ShopTalk, the podcast built to unlock union strength through collaborative discussion. Our aim is to have a naturally flowing conversation on relevant union issues, events, and topics. For our first series, each episode will be a dialogue with this year's election candidates. We will strive to cover enough topic areas to give voters a sense of who the guests are as individuals and who they will be as union leaders. Thank you for joining.
Hello and welcome to Shop Talk. I'm your co-host Frank Perry.
This is Robert Bays.
So today I'm happy to introduce our guest, Mr. David Jimenez. David is currently running for the statewide office of VP of Secretary Treasurer. He has been a member of SEIU Local 1000 since 2004 and a steward since 2012. His home DLC is 706, which covers areas of Southeast LA County and a little bit of the northern tip of Orange County. He's held numerous positions throughout the union beyond being a steward, including DLC 706 president, as well as DLC 706 secretary treasurer and chief steward. He's currently a disability evaluation analyst 3 for the California Department of Social Services. We're happy to have him on the show today. So welcome, David.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thanks for joining us. And as always, we will jump right in with the first question. And we would like to know, what does the phrase or word, term of art, whichever you prefer, economic justice mean to you?
Economic justice. So to me, that means a living wage, getting paid, making enough, getting paid for the work that you do, and having that wage be something, or within a range, I guess I would say, that's something that you could live off of. So pretty much being above poverty level. I would say a full-time state employee should not be making below the poverty level, and that should be adjusted for, California cost of living and those factors. So, I understand that cost of living can vary from state to state, but, being that we're from California, we're talking about California, right? So I would say that wage should be significantly above, especially for state employees, if we're narrowing down our focus.
So economic justice, it sounds like you're saying it's a livable wage, some sort of security. When was the first time you've kind of heard that phrase or kind of became familiar with the term economic justice? Was that earlier in your childhood, or was that just, recently, or you remember?
Yeah, to be honest, it's a pretty recent phrase for me to actually have heard the two words economic justice together. I think being honest, it's new to me. But growing up, I lived it, I would say, because I grew up in a large family. I have 4 brothers and 1 sister. My dad was the single income earner, and my mom stayed home and raised us. And he was able to do that. My mom was pretty much always a stay-at-home mom. And back, my dad did have a union job for the longest time. Well, for the first, I would say, when he was starting out raising his family. And then in the mid 90s, the factory he worked at, it was a manufacturer. They would produce clay pipes, big, huge clay pipes that would usually before, I guess, were used underground for sewage. And then I guess with technology advancing, cities and municipalities, I guess, started transitioning from the clay to other materials. So that affected his work, and he actually became, so he took training to become a truck driver. And that's what he retired as a few years ago. But so actually we lived it because my dad was able to make enough. He worked hard and to support his family.
So David, what drove you to first get involved with the union? You started as a member in 2004, and about 8 years later, you became a steward. What was that initial inspiration that helped you make the step to becoming a steward and getting more involved?
So I first became a steward because I got involved in the Joint Labor Management Committee within Department of Disability Discrimination Services Division. It's still contract language in our current contract, but it's not being enforced. I believe it's been watered down over the years to say that we should be meeting biannually, but we haven't had a meeting in, I think, ever since Annika got elected, because she's an analyst, disability evaluator analyst, just like I am. And so since around that time, we haven't had any meetings. But prior to that, when I first became a steward in about 2012, I got roped in, if you would, as a, just to say, into the DDSD JLMC, and I wasn't even a member. I mean, I was a member. I wasn't even a steward. So I would attend these meetings. I was getting flown up to Sacramento a lot back then to attend these meetings, and eventually I realized, one of those things, you're doing the work, you might as well commit and become a steward. And like everybody, you're kind of hesitant at first, like, okay, I'll try this out, but I'm not, but I'm not going to jump into becoming a steward right away. And after a few months, or maybe it was almost a year, I realized, oh, this is heading in a good direction. I like the work we're doing. I like the focus. So I became a steward, and so that's kind of what drove me. But even before that, I had a very good experience with the union when I needed their help with a representational issue. And that was probably in 2006 or 2007. I was having my MSA denied. I felt it was unjust, and I involved a union steward that actually worked as an analyst, just like I was. So she knew everything, there was no having to bring her up to speed. So she fought for me, and we won. So.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I wanted to go back a little bit to the whole economic justice. You lived it. You were able to live it, great, as a single, or as a, not a single father, single wage earner, in your father. Do you think that we have economic justice then among state employees right now, specifically our, 96 to 100,000 people that we represent? Can their kids say that they live economic justice?
I would say it depends on your classification, obviously, but our lower paid state employees, I mean, I've heard firsthand, state employees that still qualify for Section 8 housing in LA County, and they're in this middle area where they're trying to buy a home. To qualify for the loan, they don't qualify for the loan. And if they continue, if they make any overtime or stuff, or try to supplement their income that way, then they don't qualify for their Section 8. So they lose their assistance. But yet at the same time, when this same person is trying to buy a home, she can't qualify. And so, there's some details that may be lacking, but overall, I think that we do have state employees that are living it. I mean, nationally, the cost of living is going up, minimum wage is not keeping up. And so I think it really is something that, as a state employees union, we should really focus and hone in on, not only on how we uplift our own, but how we could help others in our state.
Yeah, I guess to get more specific on that question, because clearly there are state workers who, make up over 10 grand a month, that make upwards of $200,000 or more, maybe not ones that we represent, but I mean, there are state workers that make $500,000, almost. So we understand that that's for sure. There are some state workers that fall under that, but I guess more specifically in Local 1000's purpose statement, right? We have the notion that people will get economic justice, right? And so I guess when I ask that question more specifically, are we living up to our purpose statement by giving all of our members the ability to have, social, economic, and environmental justice? But specifically, obviously, we're talking about the economic part right now. Are we living up to that, or is there work?
Are we living up to it? I mean, I would say we could definitely do better. I mean, to me, it's an area that, I mean, in our last bargaining and the last few bargaining cycles, we've been, in my view, getting away from that, and what I mean by that is when we do these special salary adjustments or special salary increases, I feel that that's taken away from the general pot, from the general pot of funds that could be available for all state employees, including the lower level ones, where, you're talking about a difference between a 2.5 raise per, or just so overall, the last contract was a 7.5, right? And there was over 130 special salary adjustments, I believe. So, and the cycle before that, it was like less, it was way less than half of that special salary adjustment. So we're kind of on this path of these special salary adjustments are starting to, become a bigger and bigger chunk of the pie, I would say. And so, so no, I would think that we could do better. I would think that we could do better and spread that pot, those funds more equitably among our members.
Absolutely.
So as you're running for VP Secretary Treasurer, some of these issues that we're asking you about kind of touch on bargaining and organizing. What is your main goal if you land this role as VP of Secretary Treasurer? What do you want to change in that role?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, obviously, I would, my primary role would be to focus on my role in the policy file, how, what the policy file duties outlined allow me to do. I'm going to push for that and beyond, obviously, because I know, what I mean by that is where we need to make changes to the policy file. I'm going to advocate for that. But within the scope of what I can, would currently be able to do, I'm going to focus on that. But not to say that I don't like bargaining and I don't like representing. Those are representation for me is one of my strengths, I guess. I mean, I'm not saying I know the contract front and back, but I love, it's one of the things that gives me the most satisfaction, I guess, being able to help a member in their time of need, when they feel they're being, whatever the issue may be. But I mean, my only time on union leave, a significant period, I guess, of continuous union leave was working for the URC, working out of the URC in LA. So that's what I did. I was taking calls coming in from the MRC, people needing assistance with, grievances or other representational issues with their manager. So that's what I did for 3 months. I liked it. There was some things I didn't like about it, but overall, it's what I think it's what people, especially that know me and my DLC in my area, know that I could come to. Besides always sharing information and passing out, keeping people informed, is that if they have any issues like that, they could always come to me.
Right. So in that role as Secretary Treasurer, a lot of people throughout the state, right? I mean, almost 100,000 people are curious about SEIU and the finances, where the money goes, who, is spending what. Does Yvonne, steal money from, the pot, or, what, all sorts of questions there. I'm sure you've heard more than we could probably name right now in the rest of the hour. But given some of those issues as the VP Secretary Treasurer, what are you going to do to, change that, add transparency, lift the curtain, forensic accounting? Like what are you doing to kind of, I guess, quell the fears or anxiety or the rumors or whatever you would call it, and kind of restore order that, hey, we do have a union that is responsible with your money? Like, how do we get that back?
Yeah, no, I think that's going to take some time, but it starts by taking strong actions, such as doing a deep forensic audit, going back 10 years, at least 5 years, preferably 10, and doing a deep dive into the books and seeing exactly where the money's been going. I think that's key to restoring trust. And then moving forward, I think it'd be very important, if we really want to grow our union, we got to communicate better, build trust, and we got to share more of what we're doing. Our board of directors meetings should be live streamed. We should be sharing information like DLC spending at the very least online, so that members could log in and see exactly where their DLC funds are going, if they're being spent, if there's been any meetings, or if it's going towards, are they purchasing laptops for for the stewards, or where's the money going? That's a great question, and the only way we can uncover that is by sharing it. Excuse me, sharing it and letting people know, hey, it's here. Go, it's here. Come look at it. And I think that that's key. We have to open up, be more transparent. I mean, we hear so many bad examples of unions, in the media, and just so we really need to turn that around. And I think it starts by being transparent and showing where the money is going, because I mean, um, dues money, it may seem for not a whole lot of money for some folks, but and others it does, but collectively it is a lot of money. It is a lot of money. And it doesn't even take that much money to tempt some people, the wrong people, into doing the wrong things with the money. So we have to be accountable. We have to show what's going on. And if we do uncover wrongdoing, we got to prosecute, we got to, or go after it, and punish those bad actors. Because I mean, I don't know how many times I heard in the news, uh,
That was what I was going to ask, if I could sneak in right there. You said you wanted to do a financial audit going back 5 or 10 years. Was that with the purpose of just restoring faith to the membership that an audit was done, or do you expect to find something?
would I expect to find something? I mean, I've heard a bunch of stuff. Do I have firsthand knowledge of any
Well,
of
like,
it?
what is the, I guess, what is the purpose of it? Is if you're going to pay for a financial audit, like I guess maybe that's the first question. Would it be you doing the financial audit, or would we pay a company like
No,
Ernst
no.
Young or something like that?
Yeah, I would say
Yeah. So if we're, go ahead. So
it would have to be a third party for forensic audit, reputable company, like Ernst and Young and those big five
right.
accounting firms.
So if we're going
And
to pay for that, like we're going to use members' money to pay for a financial audit, we usually would have a purpose behind that. And so I'm asking, would the purpose be to find something, or would the purpose be to kind of just restore order and kind of get the goodwill of the people back? Or what would the purpose behind the audit be?
yeah, well, I would say it could be a combination of both, because for one, you want to restore, restore trust. And second, I mean, if there is some wrongdoing uncovered, you cannot build trust and just let that sweep it under the rug, right? So we would have to investigate it, and if and need be, prosecute and try to regain some of our money if it's been embezzled or whatever. So yeah, no, it's both, because we want to be able to restore order, and you can't do that by just sweeping things under the rug. So it would have to be an honest, open process that no matter what comes out, people will have to be held accountable. We're not trying to do this just to put a good face on our new leadership or whatever, and say, hey, Local 1000 has turned a leaf. We're turning the corner. Look at all, and then just sweep it under the rug and hide it somewhere on the website or something like that. No, I think it would have to be a lot more open and transparent, and hopefully, by doing, because the whole backside to that is, oh, if something bad is uncovered, you're going to lose members. Yeah, there's that, but also by the fact of that we're doing this should show and build that trust. And like I said, I think community trust is something that's going to take time to restore. We've had this leadership in office for a long time, and not to say that it's always been bad, but I would say the past 5 years or so, it's really gotten bad. So yeah, it would have to be, serve both those purposes.
So you've been a DLC president for your DLC 706, and you've also been a VP in that DLC, secretary treasurer. Do you lead with transparency in that DLC in regards to being a secretary treasurer? Yeah,
I would say I do. I mean, I've been my e-board would you could ask them as well. I'm not one. I don't like to. I mean, I'm not one that's always hyping myself. It's not normal for me. So to answer that question by just saying, yeah, I think so. I mean, I probably don't sound all that. It's not normal for me to talk about myself. So like that. But I mean, I've been told that by my e-board that since I've taken over, I've led with I've had a new sense of a new direction, I guess, that I've taken the DLC e-board. So some of the things that I've done differently or that I want to take to the statewide level is in 706, we hold meetings almost every other month, whether it's an e-board meeting or a general membership meeting. We post them or I share the meetings when I have an e-board meeting, they're shared with all stewards so that they can attend, they have the link. And then the general membership meetings are shared with everybody. So let's see some of the other things I've done regarding spending, especially with the pandemic. It kind of because we're not a big DLC, so our funds were always limited. And even before I became president, we were as a DLC, and something that I'm very proud that we would do is we would hold quarterly meetings, and we would spend, I believe it was about $1,000, or it might be a little bit less. I can't remember, but we would spend a lot of money to send the postcard, the 3x5 postcard, mail postcard to everybody in the DLC. We wouldn't just rely on email communication because of the fact that in 706, we have a lot of DMVs, about 7. And, though they don't work off email. So you got to actually send them a notice or go to their work site and post a flyer or something. If they need to see it, you can't rely on email. So previous president had that practice, and I continued it. I mean, up until the pandemic pretty much. But it was something that we were going to continue up until the pandemic happened. But it's just something that we need to have that, because how many times have you heard, oh, I've never heard of that. I didn't hear about that meeting. I never got that information. So we always wanted to be able to have at least that point of contact with members, so that if they had any other questions, they could say, oh, maybe that postcard I got has some information on somebody I could call in my DLC, leadership. So yeah, I would say so.
That's interesting. Those are two of the problems we've heard from a lot of candidates that our main office has, is issues of transparency and issues of communication. And it's interesting that you've kind of are doing that already. It's trying to solve those problems on a smaller DLC scale and looking how you can bring them statewide. That's important.
Right. And even when I have my e-board meetings, our agenda is we have an agenda, but it's flexible, and any steward is allowed to speak. Sometimes I have people, I don't know if this is the right time to speak on this issue, but I want to bring this up, and that's fine. I don't shut anybody down because, oh, it's not on the agenda, so save it for next week or put it on the agenda or something like that. We don't operate under those type of tactics. I've never done that. I've always allowed people to speak and say their piece, and then trying to be respectful of time as well, and then get the program going as well.
So no mics getting turned off like at our board of directors.
No. Actually, that's interesting because when I first became an officer for DLC 706, at that time they were still sending the entire e-board up for board of director meetings, and so there was training involved. You just, over the years we've declined a lot, and so I remember I was there. One of my first recollections of Kevin Menninger was him speaking at the audience mic, and I remember thinking, oh, he's asking some questions, like tough questions, like questions that they didn't seem to be coming off well by the board and the chairperson, I guess I should say. And then I was also there. I saw when Kevin had the mic taken away from him when he was also at the audience at a separate board of directors meeting, a lot more recent than my first experience with him. And yeah, it was like, oh, what's that doing out there? Remove the mic. And yeah, he was standing there and they just removed it, and kind of, it's like, what? This is a member, but whatever. It's kind of the and it's only gotten worse. It's kind of like the atmosphere we work under.
That was quite the iconic moment in a lot of people's eyes. Seeing him stand there for 2 hours, I think, and then they just came and moved the mic, like it was inches from his mouth, and they just took it. But anyways, more about you, and I hate to do this to you. I hate to ask you this question, considering what you just told us, that you don't talk about yourself too much. But what do you bring to the position? People want to know.
Well, I would say what I've been doing as an e-board president or DLC president. I'm going to bring that openness. I'm going to bring that openness, allow people to say what they need to say. A lot of times people want to be heard. I mean, you guys probably experience it too. If you go to a work site and they haven't seen anybody, or even if they have, but they've ran into some recent issue, a lot of times people just want to be heard. And so I bring that. I'm a pretty good listener, I would say. I even do that in my work, sometimes to my own detriment, listening to my claimants with their problems. And I hear coworkers over the wall, like, yeah, okay, rushing them on to the next. And, it's just something I feel like, at least on a basic human level, when sometimes you could sense people need a vent. So I lend an ear. But aside from that, I mean, the way I lead is with an open mind. No idea is a bad idea. Honestly, a lot of the stuff that we've done in 706, I can't even take credit for. But I don't stand, so I'm open to change. I think that's a big thing. I think a lot of times people see change and it's like, well, for me personally, when I first became president, I was kind of faced with that decision of, am I going to continue kind of on this path that I've been under, because of, under the previous president, or am I going to just totally, open things up and just email everybody, email all stewards, and everybody's going to get the invite and the notice. And so, yeah, I took a leap, I would say at that time, because I honestly did think about it, like, oh, do I really want to send it to that person? they're never really friendly to me. All they do, so yeah, but I'm like, you know what, I'm going to just do it because that's what I say I'm going to do, or that's what I think I should do. And that's what I say, how I would want to do. So I'm going to do it. And it's worked out, it's worked out. I mean, those people that before kind of had like a, not animosity type relationship, but it was very kind of like confrontational sometimes. It's turned around. So, I mean, I'm not saying we're all buddy and friends now, but there's not that tension anymore.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we appreciate the response on that and kind of making you talk about yourself a little bit. Know that it can be a little uncomfortable. Something else I wanted to transition to is we're not sure your familiarity with the young DLC or young people in the movement, or all the different events that used to happen in our union. But when we look at the field of candidates, from our knowledge, there's only one candidate who's under the age of 35. And when you look at the stewards, almost all stewards are over the age of 35 as well. So what do you think about the status of, the movement, I guess, and how do you feel about the need to bring younger people in and encourage, younger people to take leadership roles within the union, including stewardship and including statewide office?
Yeah. Oh, that's a great question, Robert, because I mean, ever since I started coming around or became involved, I guess, I would notice the room was full of a bunch of old people older than me, a lot older than me. And I was aware of the young DLCs back then when I first started. I didn't really, I don't know if you guys are more focused in Sacramento and being down here in LA. I remember hearing about it, but I never really was aware of any like events or anything like that nearby. But I remember being aware of the young DLCs, and I remember your name being mentioned back then. But so I have like, okay, I guess kind of like two perspectives. One is we definitely need to bring in younger folks, such as, I mean, I'll consider myself, I'll be 41 this year. But so anyways, even back then, I always wondered, hey, how do you become part of the young DLCs? I'm still young.
Right.
So are you the only one that's under 35? I'm guessing.
I believe so. I don't think we found anyone else that is.
Yeah, I would say
that there's I think Annika's a little over 35, but not quite. And you're young. You're young as well. You're only 40.
Yeah, I think I beat her by, well, no, I think I'm a little older than her. I'll just say that. But anyways,
that's the safe thing to say about your partner.
Yeah. But I definitely feel like we need to do better outreach. And the the younger generation have a different way, you know, of thinking and processing stuff. So, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't try to reach out to them. And I think we definitely can. I think it's definitely, we're just not putting any focus on that, you know. And on the other side of that, where how I said I kind of have two perspectives, is like, I mean, I was as vice president, I was under the previous president who would tell me, because I wouldn't ask her and I wouldn't push that issue, because of the fact that I don't want to make people feel like, oh, you're too old to do the job, you know. Isn't that one of the isms now, ageism or
Right.
something, you know? So it's definitely something that I always kept in the back of my mind. And the main thing for me was, as long as, you know, she's doing the work and we're doing the work together, because we work really well together. But as long as we're there as a team, and she's, you know, she's not letting all the responsibility fall on me, why am I going to, you know, I'll wait my time, you know, And if I have, you know, if I remain being vice president and she decides to retire, I'll just wait my time. I'm not going to pressure anybody into, it's time for you to go, buddy. We got to get some younger faces in here. No, I don't believe in that. I think, just,
You're absolutely right. That's an important point, that it's not about replacing anyone. It's about transferring the decades of knowledge that we have so many brilliant minds, and that have all this historical knowledge and knowledge on how to get things done and the contract and all of that just retire every year. And it's like, who are they mentoring? I think, we saw Thomas Perrine just left, and it's like, yeah, there's very limited people for all these people to pass their knowledge down to. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's not about replacing anyone or kicking anyone out, but if they don't have if there's no one up next, then what?
Right. And so we definitely have to work on engaging the younger folks, because I don't know what the statistics are for state employees overall, but I mean, in my department, I see them hiring a lot of younger, fresh out of college, younger folks, or kids, or I shouldn't say kids, but individuals. So, I mean, but I don't know what it is overall statewide, but I think the workforce is changing, so I think our union has to reflect that. And, one thing that I remember was stuck with me, it was a board of directors meeting, I believe. I'm not sure what the meeting was, but it was in Sacramento. And, there's a line for the food, and somebody behind me said, oh, forgot what the conversation was exactly. But the thing that stuck with me is like, well, what do I care? I'm gone in a year. And I was like, oh, it's like, wow, and it's like, obviously they weren't aware of their surroundings, because they would have seen that somebody like half their age was right in front of them. And that didn't sit well with me. And I kind of think that we really, really need to get away from that type of attitude of, it's almost it's not my problem, it's theirs. And, but if you're in that position, you probably should be trying to do something to make it better for, the younger folks that are coming up. So that's just something that stuck with me and experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And, to, I guess, continue that, not exactly, but tangentially, like a yes or no question for you. Is our union headed in the right direction?
No.
And if you care to expand on that, you can.
I mean, honestly, the way things are going, I think it's very hard to, people want to believe, and they want to continue to give unions a chance, and maybe they're looking at a bigger picture, which is right. But I mean, everybody can only take so much. Everybody can only take so much of the same mistakes, or mismanagement, I guess, or whatever you want to call it, lack of communication, lack of trust, so I think everybody has their breaking point. And I mean, the PLPs really decreased more. This whole COVID pandemic, it really showed what, health and safety is like, it's just like something we talk about, but we don't act on. It's I mean, yeah, a lot of people, especially Unit 1, were able to telework, so it becomes kind of like a non-issue. But then you got those other issues where you got people saying, oh, I had to buy my own printer, but I get the paper for free from the department, you know? I was like, what? You had to buy your printer to do your state job? It's like, that is crazy, you know? Or people using their personal phones to conduct state business. It's like, that's like, to me, that's like commandeering like the state's commandeering your like a cop commandeering your car because they got to go chase a criminal or something like that. It's like the state's commandeering your phone, and what are we getting? You know, yeah, we're safe because we get to work from home, but I mean, we're facing increased bills from being at home, you know. So we have to work on that issue for teleworkers. But for those folks that aren't able to telework, like your DMV folks, I mean, I mean, yeah, they got plexiglass in October, I think. I mean, we could have gone to a grocery store in April and you would have had, and you see plexiglass. But the state, was able to do it for DMV until October. So, and, you know, and the way it's communicated, it's like, it's a win. Yeah, it's a win, but I mean, it's a little bit farther down the road than I think a lot of us are willing to accept as a win, you know, like to clearly classify that as a win. At least that's my view. I mean, I'm sure they appreciate it, obviously, but I mean, they were going through a lot until that actually happened, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think people don't feel the union's effective now, so they don't feel like they can for health and safety issues. They don't feel like they go to them to reimburse cell phone bills and other bills because they can't even protect our contract that was agreed to when the state's in a historical surplus. So
Right.
whoever comes on is going to have to build that trust up because it's at zero for a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why overall, I think, I don't think we could continue this way. I think we're kind of, I mean, a whole nother issue is we're losing staff. We don't have enough staff. And then, so we've always been an organization that relies on stewards as well. Right. But my understanding, stewards are more of a supplementation, not your actual workforce. Right. So I don't think we have nearly enough staff to actually get into work sites and make contact with people. I mean, it's just, I mean, I was at 2 work sites today that I happened to, one, I found out last week that an office had merged from West Covina and merged to the El Monte office. So I called the manager and I was able to get access into the break room. And there's about 15 members there. And then from there, I went to Monrovia to another office where we have about 4 or 5 members there. And there I didn't have any contact with the manager, but I went to the front window and I asked if I, identified myself, and I asked if I could have access to the break room and the union bulletin board. And they did. They gave it to me, and they allowed me in. And so, I mean, and then and that was after doing some investigative meetings for some coworkers at my office. So, I mean, it's been a full day, but then after that, I came home and started working. But yeah, it made me realize, well, it's like, well, if this was my job, well, I just visited and connected with about 4 or 5 people in the matter of a few hours, and it feels pretty good. The people seem to appreciate the connection. So it's like, why can't we do this more often? Why can't we get into the work sites and make these connections more often? Why aren't we? Why am I still hearing from people, oh, I haven't seen anybody from the union here ever, or years, or something like that, So it's just a matter of getting out there and doing it. But if you don't have the people, the staff, it's very hard.
Yeah, definitely. Feel that, I guess, 100%. And speaking of kind of this culture of, we're headed in the wrong direction. We have a kind of a culture of mistrust in certain way, right? People are done with the past leadership or current leadership, if you will. And so I guess putting all of that together, when we're talking about bringing people together, one of the big issues of this election is that the notion that politics is what is dividing our union. Do you believe that to be true?
Well, I will say that we are a very diverse state. we're a large state, and there is and where it's we can't say the entire state is dark blue like they want to paint the picture. Um, but I don't think it's what divides us. I think it's the lack of communication, the lack of trust, the lack of openness in the process of how we endorse candidates. I think if we were to actually find some good right of center folks that wanted to go for our endorsement, I'm sure that that's a possibility, but I'm not sure how long it's been since it's actually happened. Um, so for me, it's I think until you actually give it a try to actually include these folks from all sides of the aisle, I'm not gonna. I don't think I wouldn't agree that it's something that's dividing us. I think there are other issues, bigger issues that are dividing us. But when it comes to, I do think that maybe obviously politics are important, but I think maybe our local should just work more behind the scenes as part of SEIU California and allow them to take the larger lead in how in endorsements, especially at the state level and all that. But it does get murky, especially very murky when you start getting into the very local races like school boards. I don't think I would say I don't think we should be getting involved at that such a local level. And I could be wrong. It's just that the way I see it is, we're an employee of state union of state workers. So if we start focusing on small races, and not to say that they're insignificant, they all matter. But if we start throwing our weight around in these small races, I could see why people feel like left out or not included, or that their union is taking a position, or going too far, maybe. I'll say.
Do you think it's the small races that are a problem, not like the governor or anything like that?
Yeah, I would say it for me, I think it's more of
Because
a
I know
problem.
Dory Stedman, if you're familiar with Dory Stedman, I know she has pushed for years to get more Republican candidates at smaller races and local levels, onto someone we could endorse, right? Hey, give us the option to endorse, this city council person or whatever who's a Republican. And so it kind of sounded like you had two answers, with all due respect, that it's kind of sounded like you started by saying we should jump in heavier into politics, but include everyone, include both sides of the aisle. But then it also kind of sounded like you're saying, well, we should kind of pull back from that and defer to a
Yeah,
large.
no, I wouldn't say heavier. I would just say pull back and have a bigger tent, include more people. Um, um, I think our level of involvement is good at where it's at. I wouldn't say we need to push any, get more involved. But we do need to include more people of different backgrounds or different politics. But as far as how deep into the local races we go, that's something that I'm a little hesitant to comment on too much. I'm not really all that familiar with the background and the different circumstances that would push us to do that.
Okay. I guess so. A better question for you then, as the future treasurer, would be what sort of financial commitment should that look like then? What percentage of our budget or dollar figure or whatever's best for you should be committed to these types of political endeavors?
Well, remember, dues money is not supposed to go into politics. So, I mean, so under that understanding, if the COPE budget would be the pot that you're playing with, right?
Fair enough.
So, so I would say that COPE budget should be focused on statewide and the representatives. But so I would focus on those. And because after all, right, the legislature are the ones that vote on our contract, not
Right.
mayors or council people. So,
And
and
we
the
can
governor needs to sign it. So
We can appreciate the note, what you brought up, right? Like I made me smile. Like, yeah, like union dues aren't supposed to be spent on political things. But if you ask around, the common belief is that, and you have some candidates pushing this too, right? Is that upwards of 50% of our budget is spent on politics currently. And so I guess you're saying that that should be zero because we shouldn't be spending money on politics out
Well,
of the
that,
you or
yeah.
is that false? Do you know, or are you like, do you think that that's false that we spend money on politics out of the union dues, or
I mean, well,
is
I mean, as far as I know, I hadn't heard that 50% figure before. So, but I will agree that they're probably, like most people, they probably are not sticking to the COPE budget and somehow working, getting some working around the ends to use dues for political stuff. I would probably um, side on that side with more, where general consensus may lie than the technical answer that, dues money does not go to politics. Um, but I mean, if that's the case, if 50% of our budget is going to dues, well, no wonder we're losing, we don't have staff and we're losing them. Members are not being reached at their work sites because, we're putting too much emphasis on politics. And that has been a focus of this team, Unite Members for Change, that not to say that politics is not important, but we want to focus primarily on workers at the work sites and building a stronger union, becoming more inclusive, communicating and building trust. And I think that is going to filter up so that, politically, we can then make pushes for broader reforms. Like I don't know why our union or unions are not pushing to repeal Citizens United or create laws to fix that, because corporations should not be treated as individuals and allowed to spend unlimited amount of money on politics. And that decision by the Supreme Court has already been sitting there or decided like 10 years at least, I think, or about. So, one time it came up in a conversation with staff from our union, and it's like, oh, well, it works both ways. That means we're also allowed to spend, unlimited amounts of money, but I mean, I don't think that works in our favor, because I think we're easily outmatched and out funded by special interests, all these other special interests. Not to say that we may not be a special interest, but I mean, we're going to be outgunned and outmatched by these corporations. So we should fight to repeal that and undo that law. Why we haven't done that, I don't know. But I think once we build trust with our members, maybe that's a direction we could go in, somehow, some way. But we first have to take care of our house, make sure our walls are strong and our roof's going to sustain.
Yeah, we're definitely outgunned by special interests, and that's not a game we want to get into. I think political spending in general, people wouldn't have a problem with it if they thought it was effective, right? Our union was a huge supporter of Governor Newsom becoming governor, right? Who knows how much money we spent into that, because it hasn't been disclosed, but we all know it was a significant amount of time and effort, and had to be money too involved in backing him. And what did it get us? It got him going back on our contract,
Right.
not keeping our workers safe, and at the DMV, really not keeping us in the back of his mind at all. 100,000 people with our union runs the state, and that's what makes people so weary of the political spending, because they don't see the results with it.
Right. Yeah, that's so true. I mean, when I visit the DMVs, I mean, you're always hearing from folks at the DMV that they don't feel, they're always pointing out the fact of how much money the DMVs bring into the state. I think they're like the second largest income generator for the state, maybe, or the first. I don't know if it's FTB or CDTFA or what, but it's up there. The DMV's up there, but yet they feel,
Yeah,
a lot of times they feel that they're not given any kind of respect really for the work that they do. and they want some of that money. They want some of that to be returned to them in the form of, like, say, even for the customers, like, they should have shade outside the buildings. The summer's coming. People wait outside the building, they wrap around. So I mean, there's all kinds of improvements we could do to improve the image of DMV as well in the state, among customers. I think that's something that we could focus on through campaigns, or just working with the state to collaboratively to reimagine the image, or just try to implant a new seed into people's heads that the DMV is not as bad as people want to make it out to be. I know when I've gone to the DMV, me and my wife recently went for her driver's license renewal, and she was out in about an hour. So I don't know. I guess it's hit and miss. I don't know, but in my experiences, our experiences, they've been great with the DMV.
Yeah, and I'm sure for a lot of our legislatures, by virtue of having their own private DMV, probably don't experience any problems with DMV either. So it's probably, right. I think a lot of the DMV issues are out of sight, out of mind for them. Which
exactly. Let those folks that have to go there deal with it, right?
Right. So I guess with all of that, there was still, I guess, it's fair because we asked everyone else this, so I guess we can ask you about this, although we know you're not going for president or bargaining or representation. So, Secretary Treasurer is a little bit different, but what are your thoughts about this whole controversy around the strike clause, no strike clause, et cetera? Do you feel like, striking is something that we should concern ourselves with? Is it just something that's so far away that we shouldn't be talking about it yet till we have a fund, or where are we at in terms of your thoughts and striking and having a union and all that? Because it's a huge topic.
Right. Yeah, I think a strike is it's critical for a union to be able to strike. But having said that, I also think that when you agree to a contract, you are agreeing to the terms, and as long as those terms are upheld in good faith, what do they say nowadays? Almost every contract has a no strike clause. I mean, so if you get that out, you're going to have to fight to get that out, you're going to have to make some major concession somewhere else. So I would say that we leave it as is. But once we get to that place of impasse, say we're working past an expired contract and we're in impasse, then we're able to call a strike, right? Or if there's other incidents or some kind of unfair labor practice where the state's not negotiating in good faith, then we're able to call a strike, But while we have a contract and the terms are being honored, I don't see strike as really being an option, I guess, because of the fact that as long as in a perfect world where the terms are being honored. And then also on the issue of strike, I think when we have to talk about it in a more creative, in a new, I guess I would say a more strategic way, because I mean, we're not going to be able, even if we did develop a strike fund that was sizable, with 100,000 state employees, and say only maybe you don't get everybody to strike. The point is, you're going to need a whole lot of money to sustain a whole lot of people if you're going to strike. So my thoughts on that would be more of a strategic pick certain departments or work sites where you could strike for a limited time, say a week or days, and then have that, make your statement that way, and like a rolling strike, and then target other work sites, different departments, or other work sites within the same department, and have like rolling strikes, kind of like a rolling brownout, rolling blackout, but rolling strikes. So that way you don't have the same people taking the brunt of the strike, and it doesn't also require, because I mean, to think of the amount of money you would need to have on reserve for a strike fund for a union our size, I think it's going to take quite a bit of money. So I don't see that being feasible, as something feasible that we'd want to start investing in so much of our resources when, I would rather use those resources for other things, member engagement. But not to say that I wouldn't want to honor the contract. I just want to rethink the whole the way we do a strike.
Yeah. Okay. We appreciate the thoughts on that. Definitely. And I think you kind of dropped in there, towards the end, that it's you need so much money that, it's, in your view, it doesn't sound like a good use of money. Like there's no reason for us to put 25% of the budget towards a strike thing every year when it would take 100 years to get there.
Right.
Interesting thoughts. Well, I know, I don't know if Frank has anything else. I know we're coming up on an hour pretty quick. And we wanted to definitely ask you, obviously this is a big race. We have a lot more than just, we've been focusing, there's a lot of focus on the 4 statewide officers, but there's a lot more than that to this election. And so we just wanted you to know from you, is there anything that people should know, any people that people should know about, any, positions that are on the ballot anywhere, including the 4 statewide officers, not to say, but, anywhere else as well. And, that people should know about or that you support, or, I guess the floor is kind of yours to talk about your team or who you think, people should vote for in these last couple of weeks.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. In my own DLC 706, obviously, not running for president. So we actually have a contested election. And although both candidates are, I don't want to say anything bad about either one of them, but my support is behind David Matunga for DLC President 706. And likewise for our Vice President Chief Steward position. We have 2 great candidates going for that position, but I'm also supporting Enrique Negrete for DLC 706 Vice President. And I know down south in San Diego, DLC 701, Luke Serna. I'm hoping that, throwing my support behind him and hope that he gets, he wins that spot. It'll be his first time as DLC president. He works for State of California Parks and Recreation down in San Diego, DLC 701, Luke Serna.
Okay. All great choices, and definitely honorable of you to shout out the people on the under ticket, whatever you would call it, the DLC presidencies. With that said, I think that was it for me, Frank.
Yeah, thank you for coming on, David. We really appreciate it, and having a conversation, trying to build the strength of our union. So if you're watching today and you want to be a guest on our show, please email us at talkshop1000@gmail.com, and we would love to hear from you.